Kayla Donnelly is getting married in a couple months. But before her big day, she's planned a weekend to remember.
There were 11 of us total, and it included a lot of my friends and also my future sister-in-law.
They've booked a cabin in the mountains of North Carolina, just outside the town of Asheville.
So the property was absolutely stunning. And then the house was kind of perched on like a hill or cliffside, and just beautiful trees everywhere. Just was beautiful.
The weather isn't great, but they aren't letting that bring them down. They've got bags of potato chips, plenty of white wine sangria, and the best friends in the world.
We were so excited. We were really happy. You could tell that the house was damaged. I didn't know how bad it was.
A giant tree, 100 feet tall or more, has come crashing through the roof. Outside, the storm continues to rage.
You could just tell that trees were going down, but you couldn't get a super clear view of anything because of the wind and the rain and all of the debris just flying everywhere.
There's no power, no cell service, and they have very little in the way of food or water.
Complete shock and disbelief and just having really no idea what to do.
I'm Tora Couture. This is a bonus episode of Tell Me What Happened, true stories of people helping people, an original podcast by OnStar. Every day when you wake up, you don't know if you'll be a person who needs help or if you'll be a person that helps someone else. It's important to remember that it's in all of us to be either one of those things every day. Kayla lives in Boston. She's got a great job in human resources with a medical supply company, and she's engaged to her high school sweetheart. With their wedding day just a few months away, Kayla and her best friends plan the perfect bachelorette weekend getaway.
I'm not too into like crazy party life or anything like that. I like more casual like wineries and restaurants and champagne bars and things like that with my friends.
That rules out Vegas, Nashville, or a trip to a big city.
I have always loved the mountains, so I figured a cabin destination was something that I would be interested in.
They scour the internet until they find the perfect spot, perched on the side of Elk Mountain above Asheville, North Carolina.
I've stayed in mountainous areas where you see the mountains off in the distance, but I've never been at that altitude before.
It's a full day of traveling just to get there. The last bit being a drive up a narrow backcountry road that twists and turns for 9 miles, winding its way uphill through the forest.
The way that the cabin was sat, it was almost like cliffside, so everything below the cabin went downhill. So it kind of went downhill with a bunch of trees, and then for miles and miles in the backyard, all you could see was trees.
Inside, it's warm and cozy.
It was very much log cabin vibes. All of the walls were wood. It really did feel like you were in a traditional log cabin with just the upgraded amenities, like a beautiful kitchen, great beds and baths.
Despite the remote location, they've got an action-packed couple of days planned.
So we got there Thursday, and the plan that night was just kind of to stay in the cabin, unpack, and we were having a private chef come that night.
They eat, they drink, and they post photos on Instagram, smiling and laughing. All 11 of them wearing matching flannel pajamas. That was the theme of the weekend, a flannel fling before the ring.
We had plans on the Friday for a mountainside picnic at a winery. We had plans Saturday to go downtown.
With so many of their activities planned for outdoors, they'd been keeping a close eye on the weather forecasts. Hurricane Helene was expected to hit the coast of Florida that weekend, but that's 600 miles away. Still, Kayla reached out to the winery about their picnic plans.
They thought it was just going to be rain, so they were just moving the location, basically, of our picnic. But they still planned for the show to go on.
One by one, they call it a night. Eventually, even Kayla goes to bed.
And then in the middle of the night, I would say I woke up at like 2 or 3, hearing incredibly loud winds. but I'm a light sleeper. I'll wake up, but I won't get up. So I was like, oh, it's fine. I mean, nothing I can do about it now. It'll probably be fine in the morning. I honestly didn't think much of it. And then at about 6 a.m, I heard a group of my friends just screaming. And that was when a tree had crashed into the living room.
5 of her friends, the early risers, were sitting on the couch drinking coffee when the giant tree crashed through the roof.
There was wood all over the floor from the roof panels that had fallen in, and from the wall that it had damaged, and water coming through. And I think we were just in a state of shock, honestly, because I could not believe that had happened.
They do what they can to deal with the damage.
But the ceiling was so high, there was no way we could reach anything or try to patch anything up or anything like that. It was a very high, vaulted type ceiling. So all we could do really was put towels on the ground and over the couch.
Meanwhile, flying debris makes going outside too dangerous.
So honestly, all we could do was wait it out. We didn't really know what else to do. We were kind of in disbelief.
It's early afternoon. The storm has passed. After all the mayhem, the entire mountainside is eerily silent. Tentatively, they step outside.
That was when I realized, oh no, we are certainly going to be trapped here for a while. And there was a huge tree just on the driveway that we had to get through that blocked the whole entire thing. And then when we got to the main road, it was completely covered in fallen trees. Trees that had been there for hundreds and hundreds of years by the looks of them, so they were very large. So there wasn't really a way to get through it easily or to see much into the distance. All you could see was trees down. The first thing, honestly, that went through my mind was guilt for bringing 10 of the closest people in my life to this spot where I knew we were going to be trapped.
Back inside, they take stock of their situation. They have no power, no way to contact the outside world, and also no running water.
As soon as everyone woke up, the toilets weren't flushing. That was our first tell that the water was out. So at that point, we knew from the very early morning that all we were going to have was the bottled water that we had left. I think we had 2 cases of waters. It was not a lot.
They also don't have much food. Between the private chef and the planned dinners out, they hadn't done much in the way of provisioning. They gather in what's left of the living room. There's a massive hole in the roof and debris everywhere, but it's the only place all of them can be together.
So some of the girls cried. I believe I probably cried too at some point that day when we had came inside and were like, oh my God, this is horrible.
Afternoon turns to evening.
So it was pitch black in the house. We found a little box that had fake candles and a flashlight. So we had those perched up in the room, and we all just kind of stayed in the living room and just played mindless little games. What's your top 3 movies? What's your top 3 favorite TV shows? And we just went around trying to do things to keep our mind distracted.
For dinner, they have 1 package of pasta and a single jar of sauce. They cook it up on the gas stove and pass it around for everyone to have a bite. As the night wears on, Kayla has 2 other things on her mind.
My matron of honor and my best friend Lexi had just found out she was pregnant about a week before we went on this trip. So she was newly pregnant, so that immediately scared me. One of my other friends is a type 1 diabetic who has an electronic pump that requires a charge. So that made me nervous as well.
After a few hours, they all go to their beds and try to sleep.
The next morning, things started to get a little bit more dire. I think the spirits definitely declined. I think we really started to set into the fact that this was a really serious situation.
They talk about an escape plan. Some of them want to head out on foot, find their way down the mountain and get help. Others argue that they don't know the route and they'd get hopelessly lost.
Close to sunset, just before the sunset, we heard a voice calling down to us. And honestly, I could not believe it. that was like the most hope I had had when I heard an unfamiliar voice like yelling, "Hey, anyone down there?"
This is Tell Me What Happened, a podcast created by OnStar to showcase how important a human connection is when you need help. Whether you're on a sinking cruise ship, running from an avalanche, or trapped in a mountain cabin.
So my wife and I have been in Asheville for almost 20 years now.
That's Ben Moore, a 40-year-old cybersecurity expert.
We've been married for 13 years now. We have a 2.5-year-old. We've got 2 dogs. We go on a walk every night for a couple miles.
They live in a historic farmhouse that was built in 1880. It's a perfect example of what makes the area so unique. A marriage of historic charm and modern amenities.
Asheville in general is a vacation destination, or it's a place where people like to see themselves retiring to. At one point, it had kind of been a bit of a hippie community up in the mountains.
Today, it's regarded as an arts community and a destination for both foodies and outdoor adventurers.
So we're right in the Blue Ridge Escarpment, and we have a bunch of different natural areas that are around us, like Pisgah National Forest. And so everywhere you're looking, you can see a mountain range in the distance. And the valleys is kind of where you have most of the cities and towns here.
That's what Asheville is, a thriving city of 95,000 people, tucked into a mountain valley. In September of 2024, all that changed.
My wife was out of town on a girls' trip.
Ben has invited his parents over to help with their daughter while he's working.
So, Thursday night was typical kind of night with the folks and the daughter, spending time together and having dinner. Not really, spending any time thinking about or preparing for the storm.
They know some weather is coming. Residual effects from Hurricane Helene that has made landfall down in Florida. But all the forecast is calling for in North Carolina is some rain and maybe some wind.
We're on the very eastern side of the mountains, right? And so with the way that storms move from the west to the east, typically a lot of the energy gets taken out of storms as they come through.
Ben tucks his daughter into bed and calls it a night. He wakes up early the next day to the sound of a howling wind.
You could kind of tell that something was, a bigger magnitude than what we thought.
Friends of his who live up on Elk Mountain start sharing photos online.
So they were sharing pictures that already looked like complete and total destruction, wind-related destruction. And that was, call it 8, 9 in the morning.
An hour later, the power goes out, and his internet connection disappears.
It was pretty clear that I wasn't going to be able to get on my conference calls and do my work for the day. So we spent the morning just kind of hanging out in the living room and drinking coffee.
From his living room, Ben looks out over his front yard through a giant bay window.
The first tree that we lost was probably a 36-inch diameter elm tree, and it laid right down my driveway.
Minutes later, a 90-year-old Norway spruce, even bigger than the elm, topples to the ground. By mid-afternoon, the storm has passed, and Ben gets to work clearing the downed trees. Using a chainsaw, he clears his own driveway and then starts helping his neighbors. What Ben and his neighbors are dealing with is just a minor inconvenience compared to what is happening lower in the valley. The French Broad River has flooded over its banks, and the entire city center of Asheville is underwater. The streets are running like rivers, and residents are stranded on rooftops. Thousands of people have lost their homes, and across the region, more than 100 people have died. Ben starts to wonder about his friends up on Elk Mountain, the ones he was messaging before the power went out. Are they trapped? Are they hurt? So he decides to go find them.
The main goal was just to make first contact and say, are you guys okay? Do you have enough food? Do you have enough water?
There are multiple routes up to the ridge where his friends live, but all of them are blocked.
There's trees everywhere here. and it's woodsy, it's mountainous, and they're all giant old growth trees for the most part that fell. There was 2 spots at least where there must have been 20 of these like 3-foot diameter trees dropped just right on top of each other like pickup sticks.
He drives as far as he can, then leaves his truck and starts walking.
I think it was around 3 o'clock, maybe even a little closer to 4. And the sun at that point is setting somewhere around 6.
He hikes uphill for an hour and a half, a 2-mile walk that normally would have taken less than half that. His friends are, as he expected, oblivious to the flooding in the city, but very aware of the destruction on the mountain.
They were looking out over absolute decimation, right? Imagine a forest, right? If God took his hand and just pushed that forest down or snapped it off, the entire side of a mountain from the bottom to the top just completely laid flat.
Ben tells him how bad things are down in the valley and makes it clear that all the resources are focused on saving the city, so there's no help coming anytime soon. Having made sure they're okay and mindful of the coming darkness, Ben begins his descent.
I started walking back the direction I came and looked down off the road to my left. I saw a girl standing in a driveway. I said, "Are you okay?"
So we all ran outside.
3 or 4 girls came up to the top of the driveway. I think they're even wearing socks, right? Like just ran out of the house.
And he was up at the top of the driveway and told us that we would be biblically and then F word if we did not hike down the mountain ourselves.
It basically said, hey, things aren't going to get better here.
He said that we were going to be trapped there for a very long time. Most likely it was going to take a lot of manpower to get all those trees down. And he gave us instructions and directions on how to get down the mountain.
Ben's instructions are urgent, specific, and full of crucial details.
He gave us like full-blown directions on how to get down, where to turn, all of that as we're like typing it in our notes apps on our phone.
He describes the route they need to take to get out. Not the winding road they'd driven up 2 nights ago. The shorter, more direct route he had just hiked up.
And I told him to not bring any luggage with them because there's some points that it was a tight enough squeeze that you probably wouldn't want to be passing a checked bag size bag with you.
And with that, Ben turns and leaves, anxious to get down to his truck in the fading daylight. That 5-minute conversation, those directions and instructions, is the trigger they need to plan their escape.
And I mean, we didn't know this man at all, but we took everything he said as like the Bible because we were so ready to get out of there. And again, it seems so silly because it had only been 48 hours, but it felt like a whole lifetime. And just to be lacking food at that point, we were really hungry. We basically had nothing. So anything he said, I was like, I'm just going to do it.
The next morning at 8 a.m., all 11 of them start hiking.
The morale was higher than it had been the previous day. I think we were all just so ready to get out at that point that we were just ready to go. We were just like all business ready to hike down the mountain.
Their morale is high, but their readiness is not. This was supposed to be a bachelorette party, not a wilderness excursion.
We packed for picnics and bar nights and things like that. Like, we did not have hiking clothes. We were all basically wearing our pajamas down because we did not have the proper attire to be hiking down a mountain.
Most hikes in the forest involve walking between the trees, but this forest was lying on its side.
Oh, it was horrible. It was over and under trees, just every step you took. It was just trees the entire way for hours of hiking. So you're going over and under all different sizes of trees, through like thick brush.
Kayla's shoes are soaked and slipping, and her legs are numb from exertion.
I mean, we were falling all over the place. Like, it was so slippery. Our legs kept getting stuck in trees. We were all so tired, just hungry and thirsty.
Along the way, they keep checking the notes they made, mindful of every detail of Ben's directions. After 2 hours, They stop to eat the last of the snack bars and drain the water bottles they've brought from the house. Looking around her, Kayla's overcome with the realization of how fortunate they actually are.
I felt awful for the people that this wasn't their vacation, it's their home. So I couldn't even imagine not having another city to escape to, because you have your house here, your pets here, loved ones here, kids here, and not everyone could make that hike down the mountain because of that.
Finally, after 3.5 hours of hiking, they come across a group of volunteers with chainsaws cutting fallen trees and clearing the road. One of them is a retired firefighter.
We all piled in the back of his pickup truck, all 11 girls, and he brought us to a town called Weaverville that was probably about 20 minutes away. That ride is when we realized a lot of devastation, and cars were flipped off into little big banks of water that had collected rainwater. Houses were looking destroyed. It was really bad. Everything was complete muddy disaster.
They get dropped off in the parking lot of a hardware store. Huge lines of people looking for chainsaws, generators, anything to help them recover.
Immediately what I noticed was everyone was just so nice. They were like, oh, we have water bottles in our car. I have snacks. Someone bought us a ton of food in there and gave it to us in the parking lot. And knowing that these people live here and are also in a situation themselves that they can't escape from, and we're just bachelorette girls on a trip and trying to get home. I mean, it was incredible.
Kayla and her friends make their way to the airport in Charlotte, 3 hours away. From there, they get flights home to Boston. They are battered and bruised, breaking out in rashes from poison ivy. One of them spends 3 days in hospital dealing with reaction to bee stings she got during their descent. But they're home.
My fiance did pick me and my sister-in-law Jess up from the airport, and just seeing him and being home was the best feeling. But also, I definitely did feel a lot of guilt for being able to just up and leave that when a lot of people didn't have that opportunity.
There's no way to overstate the devastation that those towns went through. People who, they were living in trailer parks that were close to the river, that the last time that somebody saw them, that they were on the roof of their house, they're just gone.
Ben continued working to help people around him, cutting trees, delivering groceries, whatever was needed. About a week later, a friend forwarded him an article from a Boston newspaper talking about a group of bachelorettes saved by the kindness of some mysterious man.
And they were laughing because they said, surely this is you. But the thing that struck me about them after everybody got off the mountain was their first interest was not to be selfish, right? They didn't go to the spa and hang out like I would. They actually turned around and started fundraising.
We were getting a lot of media attention as well when we got home, and I didn't feel that it was completely right, because when you're looking at it, I know when I was in the situation, it was absolutely horrible. But at the end of the day, we survived and only had to deal with that for 3 days. And these people are going to have to deal with it for the foreseeable future. Completely rebuilding their homes, their lives, everything. So I think that really sparked us to develop a plan on what we could do to help them.
Kayla and her friends raised $15,000.
And they ended up giving it to a local charity. So the fact that they took a harrowing experience and turned it into something that benefited the people who were also impacted, that was just really amazing.
Hurricane season used to be something only of concern to sailors and people who live in low-lying coastal communities. But in the past 20 years, we've seen their frequency and intensity increase. We've also seen hurricanes hit areas not traditionally thought to be at risk. Hurricane Helene in September of 2024, the one that flooded Asheville, was the deadliest storm to strike the mainland U.S. since Katrina hit New Orleans 20 years before. Johnny Jett is a travel advisor and influencer. He's been to over 100 countries. And if something can go wrong on a trip, he's probably seen it. Have you ever had a stranger help you in a pinch when you're traveling?
Oh my God. Many times. I mean, many times.
What's the most memorable one?
The one that just popped up to my head was I was in Japan, and I was first time to Japan, I was taking the train to the airport, and I'm running late as usual. And all of a sudden we made a stop, and this lady who she didn't speak any English and I didn't speak any Japanese. She's telling me to get off the train because she saw my bags. Anyway, she basically got me off the train and told me to go to this other train because the train split in half and the car that I was in was going to the wrong direction. And if she did not save me, I was done because there was a typhoon coming and I was like one of the last flights out. And I'm just so thankful to her to this day. I mean, and this is 20 something years ago.
We often hear about travel advisories, travel warnings. What do they actually mean?
Sure. Well, so travel advisories are official recommendations issued by governments or international organizations to inform citizens about safety risks when they're traveling. So for the U.S., level 1 means exercise normal precaution. Level 2 is exercise increased caution. Then level 3, which is reconsider travel, that means there's significant safety or security concerns. And also there could be ongoing conflicts. There could be a serious health outbreak. There could be a natural disaster. So you should consider postponing your trip or at least thoroughly assess your risk before going. But I also, if you're traveling internationally, I would sign up to the STEP program if you're American. And that will tell the government where you're going. And that way, if something does hit the wall, they know where to find you. And then level 4, which is the last level, do not travel. This means, the situation is very dangerous. And if you do go, no one's going to come help you.
When should you be concerned, maybe actually consider changing your travel plans?
Always monitor the news and the weather when you're traveling in advance. And if they say there's a big storm coming, do you really want to be in that destination, especially a foreign destination, if there's a major storm coming? So I would monitor it, download certain apps. There's a lot of great ones. My favorite one for domestic travel is Max Tracker. It's what almost every Floridian uses for hurricane season. I think it's by a meteorologist in Florida, but I mean, that will tell you in advance. I was one time in Barbados at a conference and I looked at that app and I was like, oh, there is a storm brewing. And again, we got out of there.
But let's say, you find a great deal on a trip, a cruise or some all-inclusive, and it's during hurricane season. Should you avoid it?
I mean, it all depends on where you're going. So if you go down to like the ABC, Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao, they're out of the hurricane belt, and they usually have all kinds of like insurances. So if there is a hurricane, they will refund you, and even the other places that are in hurricane zones, including Bermuda. If you book a hotel and a hurricane is coming, they will refund you, or you can postpone it for another time. And always get travel insurance. And make sure you buy your insurance when you book your trip, because you can't buy your insurance after a storm is named.
What are you looking for in insurance packages in terms of what are the options that you'd want to have?
Buy it from a third party. So if you're going on a cruise, don't buy it through the cruise company, because if the cruise company goes out of business, and you buy your insurance through them, you're not going to get covered. So always get it from a third party. And you need to find out what's covered and what's not, because every policy is pretty much different. I mean, most coverage does not cover like scuba diving or skydiving, and people might think it does. And then something happens, you're not going to be.
Well, how do you prepare for a trip that may have delays or cancellations?
You know what? Again, I sign up to all the airline alerts. And also, if you have a trip booked on an airline, they usually let you know. If not, sign up to newsletters. I have a daily travel tip, and in my newsletter, I say what travel waivers are being offered. And that way, in advance. And I tell people, listen, if you don't want to deal with rolling delays or possible cancellations, change your ticket in advance. That way, if a big storm does come like they think it is, and they're usually right, you don't have to scramble or stay on the phone for hours. Sometimes it's 8 hours, and then try and get a seat on the next flight out, because you know what? Chances are they're going to be full. But if you do it in advance, you're going to be on that plane when other people are going to have to wait days. So I always say, listen, if there's a big travel waiver or storm coming, I will take advantage of those travel waivers and act early. And that way it will make our travel so much smoother and more enjoyable and safer.
Johnny, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me. I truly believe it. As corny as it sounds, the more people travel internationally, the less prejudices there will be in the world and fear. So, people are people all over the world. Most people are good and they just want, they want a better life for their kids and they want to be happy and healthy.
That's it for this episode of Tell Me What Happened. True stories of people helping people. I hope today you find a stranger out there that you can help. Or maybe one who will help you. On behalf of OnStar, I'm Tora Couture. Please be safe out there.